Yeah, good morning, everyone. As Charlie said, my name is Marco Raimondi. I work as a journalist for railfreight.com, and I'm here to try and moderate this session, which it's titled "Competitivity and Resilience of Intermodal Corridors." And before we start, I would like to say, so we talk about a lot about digitalization and intermodality. Intermodality can also be interpreted in many different ways. This can be an example of an intermodal conference, since we will have people in person, we will have people joining online, we will have some people with pre-recorded videos. So I would say let's not get lost in further ado, and let's introduce our first keynote speaker to open the conference. We have Olga Simeon, permanent representative for Italy in the European Union and an expert on state aid. She's in live connection with us. Good morning, Olga.
Good morning, everyone.
Perfect. We can hear you loud and clear. I would say the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. So I will try to share with you. I prepared a short presentation. Let's see if it quickly works. I don't know if you can see the presentation.
Yeah. Yes, we can. Yeah, perfect.
Yes, I guess so.
Yes.
Can you see it?
Yeah, we can see it. I'm not sure if you can hear us, but we can see it.
Hello?
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you very
no
much.
problem.
So, first of all, thanks everyone for inviting me. And thanks Fermerci in particular. And I'm very pleased to share with you the latest updates from Brussels that are most relevant for the rail and intermodal freight transport sector. So this overview that I would like to share with you also reflects the collective work and insights of our transport team, particularly of our transport attaché Paola Mellone. The transport team is currently engaged in the final preparation for tomorrow's Transport Council in Luxembourg. So I will give you some fresh updates in two main areas, the legislation and of course also competition rules. Just to understand where we are now, well, transport is currently navigating a very challenging phase, and it is still midway through the implementation of the Smart and Sustainable Mobility Strategy, which is the flagship transport roadmap of the previous mandate under the Green Deal. But at the same time, it must now respond to the emerging priorities of the 24-29 Commission, with competitiveness at the heart of the new agenda. And we all know that balancing a long-term sustainability goals with immediate economic and strategic demands will be and is actually a defining challenge. So now, what to expect next? If we want to quickly go over the transport agenda that is about to roll out, looking at the close future, the competitiveness compass has included transport in the second pillar, with a clear roadmap for decarbonization and competitiveness. So all flagship actions are scheduled for this year, and one, as you know, has already been completed on 5 March, which is the Automotive Action Plan. But the others are imminent, and as you can see, they concern a new plan for high-speed rail in the context of a series of actions to strengthen the European cross-border rail connectivity. The second action, which is scheduled mid this year, is the Sustainable Transport Investment Plan, which is meant to provide additional measures to de-risk investment needed to swiftly ramp up the charging infrastructure, as well as the production and distribution of renewable and low carbon transport fuels. And last but not least, the new strategy for European maritime industry and ports for the end of this year. So all these actions are meant to increase competitiveness at the same time to foster intermodal transport. We can see that they are all together the so-called enabler of intermodal transport. But as you know, we are still carrying over some important files from the previous green mandate. And there are open issues, both on the legislative front and in terms of competition rules. Two areas where important initiatives are still awaiting closure. So let's start with the legislation. So we have the legacy of the greening freight package that I think everybody well knows. The regulation on the rail capacity is in promising work in progress. The regulation establishes, as you know, a cross-border rolling planning model for capacity allocation and is meant to replace the current national rigid annual system. It's meant to improve the reliability of the network and in particular coordination in case of disruptions for both the passenger and the freight sector, of course. Where are we now? Where do we stand in the process? Parliament adopted its position on 12 March of last year, and Council adopted a general approach on 18 June of 24. And two trialogues were held, and the third trialogue is scheduled for 10th of June, so in the very close future. And to summarize the core of the discussion, major divergences still remain on the governance of the new regulation, in particular the legal nature of the new coordinator, the network coordinator, that is a kind of Eurocontrol for the rail, the ENIM, the European Network of Infrastructure Managers. So what is the legal nature of the guidelines of this network coordinator? And divergency as well on the role of the strategic orientations of member states, as well as on funding clauses, so the clauses to provide financial support to the network. The weight in dimensions directive, well, in this case, the work is in slow progress, actually. The revision of the old 1996 directive has a twofold objective, actually. On the one hand, it is meant to promote the uptake of the zero-emission heavy-duty vehicles, but also to make freight transport more efficient and sustainable. And the key measures include, as you know, a 4-ton increase in the maximum weight of zero-emission and intermodal vehicles, and the cross-border use of gigaliners, the EMS, as well as an harmonized enforcement mechanism. Well, where do we stand now in this, in the context of this directive? The Parliament adopted its position on 13 July of last year, and Council negotiations are ongoing, hardly ongoing, due to persistent divergences on implications for infrastructure and environmental performance, as well as for modal competitiveness. A compromise proposal tabled by the Belgian and the Polish presidency on axle load, on infrastructure migration measures, and also the phased introduction of provisions on the TEN-T network have failed, unfortunately, to gain sufficient support. So a progress report by the Polish presidency is tabled for tomorrow, but further discussions are postponed to autumn this year. Under the Danish presidency. And in its informal work program, the Danish presidency expressed its intention to conclude, hopefully, the file within its mandate. So, moving to maybe the most difficult file at the moment, the Combined Transport Directive, well, this file seems to be at a standstill. So I will not spend many words on this because we will have a valuable intervention afterwards by Mr. Tosi on the state of play of this discussion. Well, just a few words to say that this revision was due, as the original directive is very old, traces back to 1992, and the new proposal is meant, once again, after the failure of 2016, to redefine combined transport and also to introduce additional support measures to increase the efficiency of combined transport. On the regulatory side, by way of exemptions from weekend and nighttime bans, for example, but also on the economic side, by way of mandatory adoption of national frameworks, including also state aid. And we will talk about state aid in a few minutes. The most disruptive innovation in the revision of this directive is the new definition of ambitious definition of combined transport, which is no longer structural based on distance, but behavioral based on the objective of achieving at least 40% of the reduction in external cost compared to road-only transport. And this new definition has a major limitation because it relies on digitalization. And if digitalization is not fully completed, well, the definition cannot take place. And there are resistances in this respect. So this would be the full digitalization of freight transport is precisely the aim of the FT regulation, which has not been yet fully implemented. So where we stand now, the discussion involved 3 presidencies, and the latest compromise proposed under the Hungarian presidency failed to reach consensus. So technical discussions, as it will be further explained, were suspended in October 24 due to concrete lack of progress. Last but not least, just a few hints at the new regulation Count Emission EU. This is a file in its final stages. Good news because in December last year, the Joint Committee TRAN and ENVI informed the plenary about the decision to start interinstitutional negotiations. So we, the institutions are preparing, the trialogues. The preparation is ongoing. So we hope to have soon a new regulation establishing a common framework for calculating and reporting greenhouse gas emissions from transport services. So this is a good piece of news. And the revision of the Train Drivers Directive, which was announced already in the work program of the Commission in 2022, is about to come, hopefully by the end of this year. It is scheduled by the Commission to issue a proposal by the end of the year. But now let's move to the second front, where a key initiative is still awaiting closure. So the new state aid rules that are supposed to, let's say, to accompany the legislative reform and to be a support for the greening freight package. Well, the revision of the current state aid railway guidelines, which are guidelines that trace back to 2008, so very old. So the revision was kicked off in 2020, actually. So it's quite an old file. The evaluation at the time concluded that these guidelines were outdated, in particular also because they were unimodal. They were not reflecting the evolution, the development of the market, in particular the greening of transport. And so they needed complete overhaul. So to deliver, in particular, on the green freight transport, on the digitalization challenge, on the interoperability gap, as well as to deliver on the problem, on the main issue of the lack of terminals, all these digitalization, interoperability, and terminals, the key enablers of intermodal transport, the Commission called for increased public support, which must comply with internal market rules, of course. So it was therefore very urgent to equip member states with appropriate tools to tackle these market failures. Tools that must reflect, of course, the evolution of the market since 2008, quite a while at the same time keeping and ensuring a level playing field, of course. So this proposal was published in June 24, And the most significant shift was a change in the approach. So from unimodal, so rail-only rules on state aids to support transport, so from an unimodal perspective to a truly multimodal perspective. So just a few examples. What are these new rules about? The Commission has proposed a sharper set of tools to back rail and intermodal freight transport, which is supposed to be better aligned with today's market realities. Just to give you a few examples, on the investment side, investment aid, the Commission is proposing aid for terminals to support the construction and refurbishment of terminals and private sidings up to 50% of the aid intensity of the eligible costs. And on the interoperability side, ERTMS and DAC will be able to be supported up to 90% of their cost, and telematic application for multimodal transport, such as TAP, TAF, TSIs, up to 50%. In the context of digitalization, we have new possibilities, in particular, to support the systems for traffic forecast and route optimization, which is key in the logistics sector, as well as monitoring working times and resting periods in rail transport. So also systems to protect workers in the rail transport will be able to be supported up to 30%. As regards the purchase of wagons and barges in the inland waterways sector, well, this is a possibility, but there are many limitations to protect competition. The Commission envisages the possibility to give only guarantees and only to small and medium companies, and only in the context of rail to new entrants. This is because the Commission considers that the main problem is access to finance, which in principle concerns only small undertakings and new entrants. And then there will be the possibility to support the purchase of intermodal loading units up to 40%. In the context of operating aid, so how to support the cost, the additional cost of transport and intermodal transport operations, the proposal of the Commission identifies two different instruments, each addressing a specific issues. One instrument is already well known at the moment and is applicable to rail, but will be extended to the broad notion of multimodal transport. Including, I didn't mention this, but including combination with short sea shipping, with inland waterways, and road short sea shipping as well. So the first instrument aims to reduce the additional cost of transport solutions that generate lower external cost compared to the road-only alternative. And to calculate this external cost, the Commission will use the handbook on external costs that quantifies the external costs in Eurocent per ton kilometer or per passenger kilometer. And the aid will cover up to 50% of the avoided external cost of the difference. And the second instrument is the new entry, let's say. There will be the possibility to support the startup of new connections between terminals, intermodal terminals, that have not been linked for at least 5 years. So the aid intensity starts at 80% in the first year, and gradually decreases to 40% by the fifth and final year. What is the breakthrough innovation in this case is that for the first time ever, also the transport sector will be exempted from prior notification obligation to the Commission, which means simpler and faster procedures. So there will be no need for the member states to wait for the agreement and the formal decision, authorization decision by the Commission. But if the measure, the public support measure, fulfills all the conditions of the new transport block exemption regulation, well, no prior notification will be required, and the member state will be able to roll out immediately the support measures that we've just quickly summarized, at least the main ones, the main novelties for rail and intermodal transport. What's the timeline for this? Well, the timeline is quite known, and the Commission has promised to deliver the new guidelines and the new transport block exemption regulation by the end of this year. In a couple of weeks, in 10 days, we will have the final meeting between the Commission and the Member States to discuss the latest details of these proposals, and then we'll be waiting for the publication of the new pieces of legislation, and in particular of the block exemption regulation for transport. So these are the main novelties from Brussels. I hope that you managed to follow the overview that I provided, and I hope I've been clear. And I'm, of course, happy to take any questions if there are any.
Yeah, maybe for the question, I would say we are a little short on time, so maybe those who are interested in asking some questions to Miss Olga Simeon can reach out to her. Because unfortunately, we need to keep things running. Well, not unfortunately, but unfortunately a little bit. So I would thank you, first of all, Olga Simeon. Thank you very much for your intervention. I would say let's give her a quick round of applause. And I would like to now introduce our new speakers from the Board of Directors of UIRR. We are muted, but they are in presence. The new speakers are here, so I think that's why we are in mute. So let's give a warm applause to Andrea De Bernardi, member of the Board of Directors of UIRR. The floor is yours.
Hello to everybody, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for this invitation. As a member of the UIRR Board of Directors, it's for us a very important day today because the alignment between our association, European Association, and the State Association is crucial for the development of our sector. I would like to give you a few figures about UIRR, starting saying that our association this year has 55 years, so it's a very important moment for us. Very important moment. I had the opportunity, and I'm very satisfied to be here in this sector since 25 of these 55 years. So it's very, very. It's really a pleasure for me. What is important for you to know is that URR is very active. We are the International Union for Road, Rail, Combined Transport Association, and we always try to be present for all our associated and for the sector to develop our combined transport activities. A few figures concerning 2024, because today we are talking about competitiveness, we are talking about resilience. It's important for you to say that in 2024 we had as members, or all the associated of UIRR, performed well, because we can say that in 2024 we had a growth in terms of consignment about 5% compared to the previous year. So we represent 4 million of consignment, means about 8 million of TEUs, to give you important figures. And was important also the fact that the ton kilometers increase by 8% means that the units that we are transporting are heavy compared to the previous year. But if we can say, okay, in 2024 we have a global resilience, we have to say that these figures has two different aspects. The first one is that we had a growth in domestic transport, and this is mostly due to the fact that domestic transport were not plagued by border cross issues. The following speech, my colleague will explain what happened in 2024 in the most important corridors. So domestic transport were performed good. The cross-border performance is impacted, on the contrary, differently depending on the different corridors. For example, we fortunately had a reduction in terms of volumes on the Italy-Germany corridor due to a lot of works on the line. Not only that, other corridor performance well, but not to forget, 2024 was the year in which we had a total closure of the Frejus corridor. This was, I have to say, a disaster for our system. But now we are restarting and we are regrowing, so we are very positive for the future development. And we have also to remember that 2024 was the year in which we had more or less 9 months of closure of the Gotthard tunnel. But as I said before, we will explain in details what happened in the international corridors after my speech. What is important for us? As UIRR, we made at the beginning of 2025 a presentation, a very interesting presentation, because we have presented a study showing the advantages in terms of savings to public budgets in case combined transport become the backbone of land freight transport over 300,000 kilometers. I invite you to have a look to this study. I like concrete study. This is a very concrete study because I had the opportunity to analyze, and it starts from the analysis of 10 different services all over Europe made with our associates, and it's a very concrete study. Important to have a look to this study because in this study we put in evidence the 5 efficiencies of combined transport, not only from a theoretical point of view, but also in terms of percentage of efficiency we can have in our logistics sector. To go fast and give a few figures which are more concrete, we can have with combined transport 70% better energy efficiency. We can have up to 50% road infrastructure maintenance expense reduction. We can have up to 60% better labor productivity and improved work-life balance. We know that the problem of the truck drivers will come, and this is a great advantage for our future. We have 90% fewer accidents per ton kilometers, another great advantage for all our logistic chain. Up to 90% fewer air pollutant and greenhouse gas emissions. 50% estimated reduction of road congestion. All these efficiency can give us, in case extremely we can transfer all the volumes on the backbone of combined transport, a save for our community around 222 billion per year in terms of cost saving. This is a huge amount, but it's clear that if we don't perform 100%, we can have in proportion a reduction very, very, very important for our sector. As UIRR, you know, we are very active on all the dossiers we discussed today. We will be very active on the Adopt Open Legislative dossier. We will be very active in the correctly implementation of outstanding EU law, primarily the TEN-T corridor guidelines. You know that the TEN-T corridor guidelines can give to the combined transport a great improvement in terms of efficiency. We are pushing to help the sector to establish a resilient European contingency and crisis management mechanism, because in the last few years we had too many crises, and we have to manage this crisis all together also with the institution. Advance digitalization and provide and try to have to establish a uniform European codification are, from our point of view, very important to reach. All these elements we are trying to push and to ask for an help to all our stakeholders through our campaign. We did a separate event before this event to explain to all our stakeholders that we need support through our campaign to develop combined transport. We need support, but we have a promise. So building a robust and relevant combined transport community, make your interest heard and considered. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. De Bernardi. I would say let's move swiftly to our new speaker. We have the Vice President of Fermerci, the Italian Industry Association, Bernard Kunz, please. the floor is yours.
Aspettiamo. Okay, also my part. Hello to everyone. Also, Olga, I can't see you right now, but probably you can hear us. Thank you very much for your input and for your hope with all your measures. I think it's very important because we all in the sector, we need help. The figures show it very clearly. E anche un saluto speciale all'onorevole Tosi. Spero anche, contiamo sul supporto anche della politica molto importante per il futuro della ferrovia dell'intermodale. Okay, you see the title I chose, and we never forget it. Logistics is fundamental for a thriving economy. I mean, that's what's the key success factor. That's where we are competitive in exports or in imports. And that's where we have a problem and had a problem for the last few years. And please don't go into details, just an overview. We had an event in Rome last year. Confindustria was present, and they pushed the red alarm button. They said, wait a minute, we got a problem here because the Transalpine corridors, they are very much reduced in capacity, irregularities increased by a lot, and we cannot build on such an incomplete logistic chain. Just in the middle, you see the amount of work on the infrastructure that is planned for this year, for next year, and the coming years. And this is disastrous because we don't have much alternatives. And I show you on the next slide, towards before Rastatt, and I think we still remember very much Rastatt, when the main corridor, north-south, the Blue Banana, was interrupted for almost 2 months. The supply chain railway stood still. I think even, Ralph Charlie, UIR did a study, and the study showed that the cost of that interruption was over 2 billion euros. I mean, just imagine, 2 billion euros because we are not capable to transport our merchandise between north and south. And you know, I mentioned it before, Italy is surrounded by water or mountains. If we don't secure these supply chains, we will definitely harm the Italian industry. You know, before Rastatt, for instance, we had a 75% quality. That means 75% of the trains were not delayed over an hour. Now we are at 48%. We had an average delay by train now today of 15 hours. Before we were 5 hours. And we had a cancellation rate before Rastatt, it was 7%. Now it's 23%. I mean, these numbers are devastating. They're costing so much money because if you calculate just the cost of capital that is in the system, in the rail system, railroads, intermodal operators, terminals, I mean, these are millions and millions, and I don't need to tell you the industry is bleeding out. I mean, just look around and look at the results of the stakeholders. So, since, and I'm also representing Switzerland, Switzerland is 73% transporting by rail, connecting Italy with the Northern European market. That's 1 million truckloads a year on rail. Now I give you 1 day. If we have 1 day, like during the interruption for work, 1 day just, that is slowed down, where we only had sometimes just 1/4 of the capacity on the north-south corridor because of work. That is on a daily range, we transport 4,000 trucks on rail per day. On those days, we can only transport 1,000 trucks a day. So that means in Italy, someplace in the warehouses, at stores, at the retail, they are missing merchandise for 3,000 trucks. And vice versa, the exporters can't deliver the merchandise on time to the north. So I just want to tell you, we really, really are hurting, and I think most of it is the Italian marking that's hurting, and we need to come to a brighter future, and a brighter future, and I tell you, and Olga showed all the measures which are very, very important, but what we need is infrastructure, infrastructure, and infrastructure. We have a north-south corridor on the right side of the Rhine that will be still very much reduced in capacity for the next more or less 20 years. I mean, can you imagine if we have to run for another 20 years like today? I don't know where we are, because we are losing market share. We have a reshift from intermodal, from rail to road. So what we have already, the new Transalpine corridor, North Sea, Rhine, Mediterranean corridor, actually in that corridor there are two individual corridors. There's one, the Rhine side, which we all know, between Cologne to Basel, that goes into the Gotthard, but we also have the corridor via France. And that would have a huge, huge potential if we could build that out for 4-meter height, because today we can move on through France, we can move containers, but the major volume, the major development is on the trailers in the last few years, and there we don't have an alternative. So we need to create alternatives, we need to create other corridors, and there we have one that is already part, and we really hope that the European Commission give it the utmost priority in order to create resilience on the north-south corridor, because we can't go ahead anymore like this, because we are losing time and we're losing money. And at the end, the closure, we need that too, because sooner or later Suez will reopen. Italy has a great opportunity with the southern ports. We can bring in the merchandise via the southern ports. Now with the Terzo Valico and with the base tunnels to Switzerland, actually we are, from the Ligurian ports, we are very close in the major markets in Europe. So that's another great opportunity, great potential, not only for transports, but also for the shipping industry, the ports, all the connected jobs. But I'm coming back. We need the support, we need resilience, and we need to do something in order to overcome the shortness over the 20 years if we base ourselves just on the north-south corridor via Rhine between Karlsruhe and Basel. So thank you very much. And intermodal is the future. We also know if there's if the economy will pick up again immediately. Today, the overcapacity of road will diminish. Everything wants to go over the rate, and we are not ready. And that will be the total collapse of our supply chain. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Kunz. Moving forward, we are going to go to our next online speaker, to the Onorevole Flavio Tosi, member of the Committee of Transport and Tourism and supervisor of the revision proposal for the Combined Transport Directive. Good afternoon, Mr. Tosi. Thank you for being with us. The floor is yours.
Good afternoon, but I don't hear nothing now.
Now, is it better? Still nothing. Are we muted or? But we can hear you and see you very well.
Now I can see you and hear you perfectly now.
Can
You can hear me
very well.
very well?
Yeah.
Okay. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for inviting me. In recent years, European freight transport policies have clearly indicated the direction. We must aim for a more integrated, intermodal, and sustainable system. The goal of the EU is ambitious, more than 50% in rail freight traffic by 2030, and a doubling by 2050. Yet, if we look at the data and listen to operators, we are still far from fully exploiting the potential of rail and intermodal transport. That is why the revision of the Combined Transport Directive is now a crucial step. Combined transport is not just a logistical technique. It is the most effective way to combine sustainability, efficiency, and flexibility, integrating the benefits of rail and the waterways with the capillarity of road transport. As rapporteur for this dossier, I represent the European Parliament in a complex but necessary process. The last specific directive dates back to 1992. It does not account for digitalization, technological evolution, the expansion of the TEN-T network, nor the new environmental objectives. So we have a great opportunity now. The Commission proposal, presented at the end of the last term, introduced a new criterion, a 40% saving in external cost compared to road transport. This is a Green Deal aligned approach, but very difficult for operators to apply, as they need clear and simple rules to calculate. Therefore, the Council put aside this hypothesis and, under the Hungarian presidency, proposed an alternative based on two criteria. At least 50% of the journey must take place off-road, and a maximum of 150 kilometers for each road leg. This is certainly a more practical approach, but it revealed deep divisions among member states. Germany, France, and Netherlands consider it too generous towards road transport. Spain, Greece, and Portugal consider it too strict due to a lack of terminals. Small countries like Belgium, Denmark, or Estonia find the 150 kilometer excessive given their territorial size. Italy, together with other countries like Finland, Sweden, and Latvia, supported this mixed approach. Targeted exemptions are allowed where there are no terminals within 150 kilometers. This is a balanced position that reflects the actual geography of transport. Now, it appears that the Danish presidency is not prioritizing the dossier in the second semester of the 2025. Beyond the definition, several critical issues remain that must be addressed pragmatically. The obligation to register data on the FT platform. The platform is not yet fully operational, which worries operators and member states, as implementation timelines must be consistent. National policy frameworks, which should guide investments, must be more practical. Finally, various issues related to state aid, exempt from road restriction, and reducing average cost require realism and a will to compromise. The picture is clear. Combined transport has potential, but the regulatory framework is still too weak and too fragmented. Previous revision attempts failed due to a lack of shared vision, so now caution and a drive for broader consensus are now essential.
Thank you, Mr. Tosi. And you also have something that you can tell us about the next steps we can expect?
Of course.
Thank you.
The EU Parliament has the opportunity to define an independent position, and I am pursuing an open and technical effort based on listening to colleagues and industry stakeholders. In the coming weeks, I will meet Commissioner Tzitzikostas, with whom I have already started a positive dialogue. As we are both part of the APP, I'm confident we can find common ground to align European ambition with markets' needs. At the same time, the Parliament Research Department has tasked an accompanying expert with a strategic study on European intermodal terminals to be complete by September. The study will provide a mapping of existing terminals, their capacity, and the services offered, an analysis of connection with the TEN-T network and the key ports, an estimate of average road distances to access terminals with country comparisons, and finally, an analysis of infrastructures, bottlenecks, and accessibility challenges. This is potentially a tool that will help us objectively assess to most sensitive aspects of the directive, like the 150-kilometer threshold, and build a solid, pragmatic, grounded negotiating base. Parliament is ready to do its part, but we also need a change from the Council, which has so far scarcely involved, and from the Commission, which must show flexibility towards an approach not fully aligned with its initial proposal. Only if we move in the same direction can we truly boost intermodality. I conclude with a figure. Over 6 million people currently work in logistics and freight transport across Europe. It's a strategic sector, the backbone of the single market. We must provide them with simple rules, effective tools, and a clear vision. This will be my goal. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Thank you very much. So yeah, it will be a collective effort. Thank you, Mr. Tosi. I would say let's give him a round of applause. Hopefully he can hear it. And we can move on to the final two interventions of this session. The first one will be from Mr. Aldo Patriciello, member of the Committee on Environment, Climate and Food Safety, at the European Parliament. He recorded a short video for us to listen to, so sit back and enjoy.
Buongiorno a tutti. In primis vorrei ringraziare l'associazione Fermerci per aver promosso questo momento di confronto su un tema centrale per il futuro della mobilità europea, quale quello della resilienza e la competitività del trasporto ferroviario ed intermodale. Un ringraziamento particolare al Presidente Clemente Carta e a tutti i rappresentanti delle istituzioni, delle imprese, del mondo della logistica e dei trasporti per il gradito invito ricevuto. Come ben sapete, i dati che emergono dallo studio recentemente pubblicato sono chiari e preoccupanti. Nel 2024 il traffico ferroviario merci continua a calare a causa di numerosi fattori: l'instabilità economica, l'aumento dei costi energetici, le lentezze nell'attuazione dei progetti infrastrutturali e le incertezze normative che pesano sugli operatori. Tutto ciò rende ancora più urgente e strategico il dibattito di oggi. Come parlamentare europeo stiamo discutendo insieme ai colleghi in queste settimane provvedimenti chiave che incideranno direttamente sul futuro del trasporto merci. Penso ad esempio alla revisione del regolamento TEN e alla strategia per il trasporto intermodale. Questi strumenti devono essere messi a servizio non solo della sostenibilità ambientale, ma anche della competitività economica. Non possiamo permettere che i corridoi ferroviari europei si indeboliscano proprio mentre parliamo di transizione ecologica e autonomia strategica. Un sistema intermodale forte, efficiente e connesso è un investimento in sicurezza, in produttività e in indipendenza energetica. Il trasporto ferroviario merci è una delle leve più concrete che abbiamo nel rendere la mobilità europea più pulita e più efficiente. Ma per ottenere questi risultati servono scelte coraggiose e coordinate tra i Stati membri, tra livelli di governo, tra pubblico e privato. Come europarlamentare voglio ribadire il mio impegno per portare avanti politiche che non siano scollegate dalla realtà del settore, ma che rispondano alle sfide quotidiane di chi lavora ogni giorno per muovere l'Europa. Grazie ancora per questo invito, ma soprattutto grazie per il contributo che darete a questo dialogo fondamentale.
Perfect. I would say he's not going to hear us, but we can still give him a round of applause. And last but not least, to close up our session, we have another video from a colleague of Aldo Patriciello, always a member of the Committee on Environment, Climate and Food Safety. This is Nicola Procaccini.
Ciao. Hello, everybody. First, I would like to thank Fermerci for his kind invitation, as well as to my colleagues from the European Parliament and the Commission present here for making this valuable opportunity for dialogue and discussion possible. I'm sorry, I can't be physically there with you in Munich, but unfortunately I have been held back by institutional commitments here in Brussels, as you can see. However, I would particularly like to share some reflections on a strategic issue such as rail transport, particularly in the freight segment. In recent years, we have seen an important evolution of European policies in favor of more sustainable mobility. With tools such as the Smart and Sustainable Mobility Strategy and the Fit for 55 package. However, the most recent data put us in front of a worrying reality. A drop in several countries, especially in Italy, interrupting the post-pandemic growth path. This contraction is the result of some systemic factors, such as the network interruptions, avoidable delays in key measures, and unpleasant episodes of infrastructure sabotage, which lengthen the completion time of the works. The decline in rail freight transport has direct consequences on our climate commitment, as you can imagine. Switching from rubber to iron allows us to reduce CO2 emissions by up to 80% per ton kilometer transported. Any decrease in the railway quota therefore means a retreat from the decarbonization objective, the target that Europe has set itself. That is why I believe it's essential that the European Parliament urgently approves structural support measures and a stable regulatory framework, enabling operators to plan medium to long-term investments. In particular, it's necessary to strengthen and extend the so-called ferro bonus, increasing annual resources and standardizing access criteria. why not taking inspiration from the Abruzzo region governed by my dear friend Marco Marsilio, who has demonstrated how streamlined procedures and coherent political choices can translate into concrete results. In the last year, the region has seen an increase in rail freight traffic thanks to rapid calls and effective coordination between local authorities and companies. And let me say that it's also useful to advance and fully implement the new tariff system, now scheduled for 2025 instead of 2026, which will reduce the railway tools and offer breathing space to a sector under pressure. At the same time, it's essential to accelerate the completion of TEN-T infrastructure. The success of these infrastructures depends on more effective coordination between the European Union, national governments, regions, port authorities and operators to reduce bottlenecks at intermodal nodes and alpine passes, ensuring interoperability and certain transit times. The integrated approach that Fermerci promotes, combining economic incentives, modern infrastructure and European governance, is key to making rail freight transport competitive. And not only competitive, also resilient and central to the Union's sustainable mobility strategy. It's also the role of us, MAPS, and I take this opportunity to greet the colleagues present to bring this request to the attention of the competent committees and to work together so that Europe makes iron the pillar of efficient, sustainable logistic capable of supporting our economic recovery. Last but not least, I'm well aware of how frustrating certain excesses in European regulation are for freight operators. Yes, there is an huge need for simplification. And on this point, I want to be optimistic. After the first year of the European legislature, I'm finally noting a more pragmatic and less ideological approach, which aims to promote simplification and with it the relaunch of European competitiveness. We'll see in the next few years if I'm too optimistic. I can tell you that me and the parliamentary group and my parliamentary group will do our part. I thank you for your attention and I wish you a fruitful debate full of ideas. Thank you. Goodbye. Ciao.
Let's also give him a round of applause, even though he cannot hear us. I would like to thank you all for bearing with us and listening to our presentations. I would like to specifically thank Fermerci and Giuseppe Rizzi for the opportunity of moderating this. And well, we've had a lot of food for thought, and now we can think about it over some food. So thanks again, and until next time.